You've felt it before. That quiet moment at a party, surrounded by people, laughter everywhere. And yet you're somewhere else entirely. Not sad. Not angry. Just somewhere else. Like there's glass between you and the room. You've smiled, nodded, said the right things. But inside, something was asking a question you couldn't quite name. Why is it so hard to just be like everyone else? You've asked yourself that question in a way that sounds like self-criticism. Like something is wrong with you, like you're too much, or somehow not enough, at the exact same time. Too sensitive, too selective, too quiet, too exhausted after conversations that other people seem to leave energized by. You've probably called it introversion, social anxiety, overthinking. Maybe you've even called it a flaw. But what if the diagnosis was wrong the whole time? What if the thing you've been trying to fix isn't broken at all? It's operating exactly as it was designed to. By the end of this, the way you see yourself in a crowd, in a conversation, in a friendship, in your own skin, is going to feel different. Not fixed, not transformed overnight. More accurate. And that accuracy is going to feel like relief. People assume that if you don't crave constant company, constant noise, constant social fuel, then something inside you must be cold, or damaged, or afraid. Society has built an entire story around this. The person who talks the most is the most alive. The one with the biggest social circle is the most loved. The one who fills every weekend with plans is the one who's figured life out. You've watched that story play out around you. And quietly, privately, you've wondered why it never felt true for you. Here's what's actually true. You are not cold, you are not broken, you are not behind. You are operating from a completely different internal architecture. And once you understand what that architecture actually is, once you see the 5 mechanisms running underneath your experience of other people, you will stop trying to redesign yourself and start understanding yourself instead. The first mechanism is what I call inner foundation. And it's the one that gets misread the most. You don't need to be around people to feel okay. That's not arrogance. That's not loneliness in disguise. It's something much more specific. You have a stable internal center of gravity. You don't lean into social contact to regulate your mood, to feel valid, to feel real. You can sit alone on a Saturday afternoon and feel genuinely fine. Not performing fine. Actually fine. Most people use social interaction as a kind of emotional fuel source. Remove the people, and the internal noise gets very loud. But you don't experience it that way. And because most people can't imagine feeling okay without external input, they look at your self-sufficiency and call it aloofness. They call it pride. They call it thinking you're better than everyone. You're not. You're just not running on the same fuel. The second mechanism is something your nervous system learned the hard way. Call it memory. Call it experience. Call it the walls you built after the rooms you let people into got damaged. You are selective. Not randomly, not irrationally, but because you've lived through moments where trust was extended and it cost you something real. Where you opened up, and the other person didn't handle it carefully. Where you let someone in, and what came back was toxicity, or carelessness, or betrayal disguised as friendship. Your nervous system logged those moments. It built a protection protocol. And now, before someone gets real access to you, there's a process. It takes time. It requires consistency. It demands more than a good first impression. People call this being closed off. But you're not closed. You're discerning. There is a real difference between a locked door and a door that requires a key. One keeps everyone out forever. The other simply asks, "Are you the kind of person worth letting in?" That question isn't paranoia. That question is wisdom. Now here's something that might be uncomfortable, and I'm genuinely curious whether it lands true for you. Feel free to tell me in the comments. Most people think social exhaustion is about being around a lot of people. But that's not quite it, is it? The exhaustion isn't the volume. It's the depth of processing happening underneath the surface. The thing most people aren't doing while they're talking. Because for you, a conversation is never just a conversation. This is the third mechanism. And it's one of the most underappreciated things about how your mind works. While most people move through a social interaction on the surface, sharing stories, laughing, filling silence, your mind is working on a completely different level. You're picking up on tone shifts, micro-expressions, the thing someone said that doesn't quite match what they meant, the way someone laughed slightly too fast, the silence that lasted half a second too long, the question asked with a lightness that was covering something heavier. You're playing social chess while other people are playing social checkers. And it's not a choice. It's not something you turn on and turn off. It just runs. Which means a party that lasts 2 hours is not 2 hours for you. It's the cognitive equivalent of 6 hours of output compressed into 2. Of course you're exhausted. Of course you need silence afterward. Of course you don't want to keep the night going. You're not antisocial. You're depleted. There's a massive difference. If this is resonating, if this feels like the first time someone's actually named what's been happening in your head, then this channel is probably worth staying close to. Hit subscribe. Not for me. Because the content here is built for people who think like this, and there's more coming. The fourth mechanism is sensitivity. Not in the soft, dismissive way that word gets used. In the literal, neurological sense. You process emotional information at a higher resolution than most people around you. The mood in a room registers before anyone has said a word. A small comment lands differently than the person who said it intended. You feel other people's distress, sometimes before they do. This is a gift. It is also a cost. The world runs at a volume that most people call normal. But you're picking up frequencies that most people can't even detect. So when you leave a gathering and need silence to feel like yourself again, you're not being dramatic. You're processing a sensory and emotional load that other people aren't even aware they skipped. Your need for quiet is not a personality flaw. It is a requirement. The mistake, the painful, identity-eroding mistake, is internalizing the idea that your need for stillness is weakness. That you should be able to handle more. That you should want more noise, more people, more stimulation. You shouldn't. And you don't. And that's okay. The fifth mechanism changes everything about how you approach friendship. You probably have very few close relationships. And the world will tell you this is sad. That you should be expanding your circle. That more connections mean more richness. That the person with 100 friends is winning a game you're losing. Here's what actually happens when people build real closeness. It takes time. Significant, consistent, unhurried time. Behavioral research on adult friendships consistently points to something in the range of nearly 200 hours of shared experience before two people move from acquaintance to genuinely close. Not in a week. Not in a month of texting. Real presence, accumulated over time. You've always understood this intuitively. Which is why you've never been able to treat friendship as a numbers game. Spreading yourself across 20 surface-level connections feels, to you, like emotional fraud. Like saying the word home and pointing to a hotel room. So you choose depth. You choose 2 or 3 people you're willing to truly invest in. You choose quality over volume. Not because you're stingy, but because you understand the actual cost of closeness, and you refuse to fake it. The world calls this antisocial, You call it honest. Now let's close the loop. Because we started with a question. Why is it so hard to just be like everyone else? It's not hard. It's impossible. Because you are not wired like everyone else. You have a different foundation, different protection instincts, a different processing depth, a different sensory range, and a different definition of what connection should feel like. You're not failing to be normal. You're succeeding at being something else. The world needs people who process deeply, who feel intensely, who choose carefully, who build few but real connections instead of many empty ones. The world has enough people moving fast and skimming the surface. You are not supposed to join them. But, and this part matters, understanding your wiring is not the same as using it as a permanent exit. There is a difference between choosing solitude because it restores you, and retreating into solitude because vulnerability feels unsafe. Both look identical from the outside. Only you know which one is actually happening. If your selectiveness comes from a place of fullness, from genuine self-sufficiency and discernment, that's strength. If it comes from fear, from wounds that never got acknowledged, from trust that got burned and never rebuilt, then the next step has nothing to do with changing your personality. It has to do with honestly examining where the wall ends and where the wound begins. You don't owe anyone access, but you do owe yourself honesty. The real work is not becoming more extroverted, not forcing yourself into rooms that drain you, not pretending that surface-level connection satisfies something it was never designed to satisfy. The real work is knowing yourself clearly enough to tell the difference between protection and fear, between depth and avoidance, between peace and hiding. Once that distinction is sharp, everything gets quieter, a little less conflicted, a little more like something you chose, rather than something you're stuck with. You are not a white crow because something went wrong. You are a white crow because something went deep. In a world moving faster than ever, shallower than ever, noisier than ever, depth is not a liability. It is a form of resistance. A quiet one, but a real one. So the question to sit with, not to perform in the comments, but to actually answer privately, is this. When you pull back from people, what is driving it? Is it the peace you're moving toward? Or the pain you're moving away from? You don't have to answer out loud, but you do have to be honest with yourself. That honesty is where it all begins.